Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Emily, but you can call me Ems. And I'm here with another knitting podcast, knitting, crafting, what have you. It's been a while since I've made an update and it's pretty much because I've been very busy. I do have some notes to keep me on track this time so I don't go like a million hours and have to like edit this down too much. So first off with my life update, first one is that in June, I went on a work trip to Winnipeg to the Canadian Symposium on Academic Integrity. It was a very fun time. I actually really enjoyed this work trip. I went with the president of the university I work for, and it was very fun, very enlightening, a lot of good information that we can take on for my actual work. Really enjoyed that, and I had a fun time going to the Canadian Museum of Human Rights, which was very interesting, and I was very shocked and impressed by how accessible the museum was. The way that you went through the museum was actually through a series of ramps. There was an option for a elevator as well that you could take to all parts of the museum or all levels of the museum. But there was also ramps, and they were graded to code, like at the grade that you need for a wheelchair, which was amazing, especially since I was having to use my cane a lot at that time. It was very, very helpful. And halfway up through each level, there was chairs with arms so you could rest, which was really nice. I thankfully ended up not needing to rest, but I really liked the idea that they were there. And I really appreciated that. I don't know why I'm so shocked that a Museum of Human Rights was so accessible, but I was. And there was gender neutral washrooms on like every level. There was water fountains everywhere. There were multiple multiple bathrooms as well. And there was multiple accessible stalls. It was just very impressive, and it made me realize that there's a lot of places that could use this level of accessibility. Thankfully, I'm not in need of a lot of these accessible features, but I definitely noticed them, especially now that I have a lot of friends in the disabled community and that sort of thing. And obviously, since I do need a cane on occasion, and I have asthma and all that, I technically am also disabled, but I start noticing these things, and I was very impressed by the museum and their accessibility. The next thing I've been doing is I've actually been participating in a lot of test knits and test crochets, and by a lot, I mean 3. But once you see them, you'll understand why I mean it was a lot, because it was a lot of work, a lot of knitting, a lot of crocheting went into the last several months. And so I've not really been doing a lot of updates, but in the finished objects category of today's podcast, I'll tell you a little bit more about those test knits and test crochets. Next up is I've actually been designing. I fell in love with a stitch texture, and it inspired me to start my design journey. So I actually have a design currently in testing. I'll show you a little bit more in the finished objects section of the podcast as well, so stay tuned for that. Next, I met my reading goal for the whole year. Like before I was halfway through the year, I actually met my 23 books in 2023 goal. This is in large part due to audiobooks, but audiobooks are still reading. And if you don't think it's still reading, then I think that's a bit of an ableist mindset, and you need to reevaluate yourself. So that was really great to meet that goal of mine. Obviously, I get a lot of audiobook reading done while working on my knits and my crochet pieces. So it's been fantastic to work on that and listen and have a good time. And just not this last week, but the week before, I actually finally had a vacation. And by finally, I mean that like I've had time off, but like I have vacation time at Christmas time, like in the Yuletide. And that is not restful for me because it is a stressful time of year. So I don't find the holiday vacations around winter and December very restful. Prior to that, my last full week of vacation, I had COVID the whole time. And it was not a fun time. And I had already had 2 COVID shots. Like I had already had the first two rounds of shots, and I still got COVID in November of very end of October into November of last year, to the point where I could not hand out at Halloween, which, if you guys don't know, Halloween is my favorite time of year. I love that. I look forward to it every year. I'm literally already at like Michael's and HomeSense and stuff looking at Halloween decor, because I do like to incorporate spooky Halloween pieces year round, as long as they are not too campy Halloween, but more like classy Halloween. The campy Halloween comes out of Halloween, okay? So it has been basically almost a year since my last proper full vacation. So it was so restful to have a full week to turn my brain off. I house sat for my mom, got a lot of knitting, crochet work done at my mom's house, did a lot of reading. That was such a nice time. I would spend every morning out on the front porch with the dogs, my mom's dog and my dog, and have my coffee and read a book, and I'd be out there for hours just enjoying that. And it was in just enough shade that it was still warm from the sun, but not like burning my skin. That was awesome. So that's it for the life update. Let's get into the works in progress, which is probably going to be the longest segment today, except actually I have a lot of finished objects, so it might not be that fast. The first one I want to talk about, I actually don't have with me today. It is the Contrast Blast Surprise Sock Along by Stephen West. I left it at work, so I haven't brought it home. So here's the thing. I was really excited for the mystery sock along. I really like Stephen West's designs, and I finished week 1 and 2. I didn't like week 2 that much. Week 3, I really liked the detail on the gusset, but then week 4, and I was like, these are not for me. So I have one half finished sock, and I don't know if I want to finish it, or if I want to frog it and use the yarn for something else. I think I'm going to frog it, and let me tell you why. I'm using the Studio Ghibli, like the Princess Mononoke collection from Typical Bliss for my sock, and I was using the blue Ashitaka and the kind of orangey, pinky, tinges of purple kind of variegated color Irontown. I was using those in the Contrast Blast socks, and I love those yarns together, but I don't want to finish the socks and then have these beautiful yarns used in these socks that I'm like, I don't like these socks. And I think that's what I'm going to do. But I think what I want to do, because I actually really love the 2 yarns together, I'm thinking, what if I marl them together, because they're fingering weight, what if I marl them together and make a Sophie scarf? Because everyone's been making the Sophie scarf. It looks so like TV knitting kind of vibe, and I'm like, I need more of that, please, in my life. So I'm thinking I might frog it and make the Sophie scarf. In fact, I've already marked the project as frogged on Ravelry, so I don't know if it's much of an I'm thinking of it, but it's more like I don't physically have them in my hands, so I can't physically unravel it. So I think that's what I'm doing. I definitely really enjoyed a lot of parts of the sock, but I don't like them all put together. It feels very like throwing every technique in the book into the sock. I love the heel flap. The heel flap, golden. I'm using that heel flap other times. The cable detail on the cuff, I love that. That zigzag pattern, love it. but I don't like those pearl bump textures that he was using there. I don't like them. They're just not for me. I think that other people have made the socks and they really are enjoying them. And I say all the power to you if you love the sock. I don't, so I'm not going to finish it. And it kind of sucks because I got a lot of people in my local knit night onto the sock, mystery sock along, like the surprise sock along. And they're all like, Emily, I'm sorry, I don't like these socks. And I was like, I don't blame you because I don't either. So we're going to have a bit of a frogging party, I think. So that's the first work in progress that's soon going to be frogged. The next one you've seen a lot on my channel, and that is the Montmartre Sweater by Fabel Knitwear. Boop, 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 boop. So we have the body done. The body's been done for a while, but we're working on this sleeve. So it's a puffed sleeve, and I'm down to what will be from the elbow to the wrist. So I'm working on that portion. It has puffed out, but then come in here. I've actually made the sleeve on the upper arm shorter because I didn't personally like how it would like flopped onto itself, and like I just want the puff to end here. I don't want it to fold over and become like a flap of fabric. I just want the leg of mutton puff, but then to come down to the wrist, to the elbow, and then straight to the wrist. So I've basically reduced the number of rows worked on the sleeve. And that's what we have so far. I'm really enjoying it. I did get the pattern for free because I am making the size 4XL, which was not tested. So I'm going to give her some feedback when I finish it, so that maybe she can call it tested and have it officially released in the size 4XL, which would be very nice because I think we need more plus size patterns in the world. The next work in progress is the Molly Mesh Market Bag by Bitches Get Stitches 95 on Instagram. So this is what we have so far. It's just a simple, like, rectangular bottomed bag with a mesh stitch, which is very fun, very simple. I call this my D&D crochet project because I can easily do this while playing D&D. So it's enough to keep my hands busy, but I'm not paying attention to what's going on in the battles, you know? So this is what I'm working on. I had to stop middle of a row because I ran out of yarn, and I don't have any more of this yarn right now, so I'm gonna have to go get some. It is Red Heart Super Saver in the color Fruity Stripe, and I quite like this color combo. I really like how it looks together, so I'm definitely gonna go get one more skein of it, and I think the one skein will finish it because I want it to be much taller, and then I'm gonna have a solid section on the top and then handles. So there we go. That's the Molly Mesh Market Bag by Bitches Get Stitches 95 on Instagram, which you can buy the pattern on their Etsy store. Then we have the Stitch and Scream Blanket, as I've been working on all year, by AltKnots, and I'm on May. So I'm on May's square, which I'm almost done. This is the, I think it's called the Crunch Stitch or the Scrunch Stitch. It's Crunch or Scrunch, one of them. But I really like this stitch texture. It's actually really, really nice. This is, again, more of the cinnamon swirl cakes from Karen Yarns. And I like these colorway. This is very springy. I thought it was very May because each square I'm making in a color that is themed to the month that it's for. So I'm working on this. I've got only a bit of the yarn left, and I've only got a couple more rows that I really need to do to make it square, because currently it's not as tall as it is wide. So we're almost there. So that's what I'm working on there. And then last but not least, for my works in progress right now, I am working on the Barley Hat by Tin Can Knits. It is in their Learn to Knit series. So I'm working on the hat right now. This is just the brim I'm working on, and I'm doing it on 5mm DPNs instead of a 16-inch cable. Just because I had these on hand and I didn't have any of my 16-inch cables available at the time. I now actually have a few available because I've been able to salvage them from projects while making other projects and finishing up projects. So I actually have it available now, but I'm actually kind of liking using the DPNs for this hat. So I think I'm just going to do the DPNs throughout. And if you can't see that halo, I'm actually using a mohair. It's my first time using mohair. So first of all, the base yarn I'm using is Gold by Briggs Little. It is a worsted weight. It's their Briggs Little Heritage yarn. It's a very rustic, very classic yarn. This is a local yarn maker who has been making yarn since I think the 1850s locally. There has been 2 fires though that have burned down the mill each time, but they've rebuilt the mill. So the most recent fire was I think in 1994. So, but this yarn has been made by Briggs Little since the 1850s. So that's really cool, especially for someone, as you know, who loves the Victorian era, if you couldn't tell by my Montmartre sweater, or the fact that I sometimes actually wear Victorian clothing, and I'm working on a wardrobe of Victorian clothing. So there you go. But the mohair I'm using is the Marsh Mohair by Lichen and Lace in the colorway Sweet Potato. So it's a mix of this deep purple, a mid-toned kind of purpley red, and some like yellowy orangey sections. When you look on the front, it's just kind of all a mess and kind of blending together. But when you look on the side, you can really see all those colors coming together. This is my first time using a mohair, and I'm surprised at how easy it is. I know a lot of people talk about mohair being really difficult, but I think it's mainly in the unraveling or frogging that there is a problem. And thankfully, I've not had to deal with a lot of frogging. So that's this hat that I'm working on, and I really like this mohair with this yellow because it makes it look almost tweedy, and the color becomes much more fall, which I was originally going to put it with a white, which meant that the purple popped a lot more, but it was more winter. So this is more fall, and I'm much more of a fall person. So I love that. And just the texture of the mohair giving the halo has meant that the yarn feels way less rustic and feels much more soft and squishy, which is really cool. And I'm excited to see how this hat works out. This is also my first knit hat because all of the hats that I've made so far in my life have been crocheted. So this will be my first knit hat, which is very, very cool. And I'm really excited to see how it works out. So I'll probably work a little bit more on that later today, just because I'd like to get a little further with that. Although this is really good for taking to work, so maybe I'll keep it as a project that I work on at work, like on lunch break or right before work, because I get to work about 30 to an hour early, 30 minutes to an hour early each day. So maybe I can work on this then. So that's definitely some options. So before we jump into talking about new yarns and finished objects, I want to talk about a new skill I'm trying to develop. And that is dun, da, 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 spinning. So I'm learning how to spin yarn. This is a drop spindle. This is the yarn I have so far. It's, you can tell it's very thick and thin. I'm not doing the worst. I'm not as bad as I thought, so we're good with that. I'm doing the park and draft method. This is just a little bit left here, but I am using Malabrigo Cloud here, which I really like these colors, so I figured I'd try out with some colors I really like. And the reason I'm learning to spin yarn is actually because I'm part of the Society for Creative Anachronism, Create Beautiful Things, the Shire of Lyndhaven. So the Society for Creative Anachronism is sort of like LARP meets medieval history in a way. And I'm into the arts and sciences in that. And I do historical knitting. So I actually won a competition, a Populous Choice Arts and Sciences competition, the first competition I ever entered in the SCA, and I won, which is wild. But in the new year, there is a new competition coming up for the Shire of Lyndhaven, and it is an Arts and Sciences Championship competition for the Shire. And I'm really nervous, but basically we have to make either one piece with 3 distinct different techniques or 3 separate pieces with 3 separate techniques that are related to each other in some way. And at least one of the techniques needs to be new to us. So I decided that I am going to spin the yarn to knit a pouch. And then the drawstring for the pouch, I will make a lucite cord. So those are my 3 techniques. So spinning is the new technique. Knitting is my main go-to technique. And then lucite cord, which is somewhat new. I learned how to make it in this last year, but I'm still getting used to it, but I think a lucite cord would be a nice way to close the pouch. So I'm thinking a drawstring purse for my persona. So I think it's going to be a good time, and I'm entering not to win, but I'm entering to expand my horizons, learn something new, have fun, and show off my own art. Because don't we all love to show off our art and our expertise and what we're good at, right? So that's what I'm doing. I'm practicing using park and draft method with the drop spindle with the Malabrigo Cloud. I'm going to probably what's it called when you twist them together? Ply. I'm probably going to ply the yarn. It'll be very thick and thin, and then I'm going to keep that hank or ball as my first ever yarn that I've spun. And then I'm going to get some plain wool. I actually have some plain wool now, and I'm going to spin it. I might get some colored wool to spin, that way like already dyed, so that I don't have to dye it. I could do dyeing as a new technique for me, but the spinning's already a new technique, and I really want to stick with just one new technique and mixing it with one medium technique, that being lucite cord, and one well-practiced technique being knitting. So I'm thinking maybe I'll spin 2 different colors, and then I will do some color work in the knitting to make a really pretty purse. And I'm thinking perhaps I will take some inspiration from the History of Knitting book by Richard Rutt, the Bishop of Leicester, which I have to get through interlibrary loan because it is not available in my library, and it is no longer in print, so it is very expensive to get secondhand. So I'm thinking maybe I'll go get that book, and I'll take some inspiration from some of the colorwork patterns in that book to make the pouch. So I think that would be a really fun activity for the fall and winter time. So that'll be kind of what I'm working on through fall and winter, probably starting really seriously in October, and with practice right now. So that's what we're doing there. So before we hit the finished objects, because I'm gonna keep you waiting for those finished objects, we are gonna talk about some yarns. So if you don't know, I'm a patron of Typical Bliss, Tiffany Lou, here on YouTube. I really enjoy her perspective on knitting and the craft and on color. It's very interesting because she is a very different person to me, and a very different different view on color and knitting. She's very into classics and elegant, like chic kind of looks, and I'm much more the loud goth, you know? Like it's like goth, but put some color in it. A lot of color. I love color. If you couldn't tell from this, like this is just visual stim glory. I just want to look at it all day long. But I did finally get my January, February, and March yarns from Typical Bliss for being on Patreon. So let's walk you through them. So I believe this was the January set. It is, ooh, hide myself. It is Wolf Girl and San, or San. This was the January yarn. It is inspired by Studio Ghibli's film Princess Mononoke. This color, I think this is Wolf Girl. I don't know which one's which sometimes. Is like a cream base with these pink and grayish, like gray brown, and this like periwinkle blue speckled throughout it. It's a beautiful, variegated, subtle color. And then the mini hank is, I believe, San, and that is that grayish brown like color. And of course they go beautifully together because they're intended to go together. The next two I got together, so I don't actually know which month they're for, but I'll just talk about them in the order I have here. So this is Jito and Nahoko. They're both very similar yarns, but this one's more pale and this one's more blue. So this one has a lot of cream with a little bit of the blue. This one's a lot of the blue with a little bit of the cream. And I've never actually seen the movie that this is about, but it looks pretty. So if anybody knows the movie that Jito and Nahoko are from, put it in the comments. Also the Studio Ghibli film, because this year's theme is Studio Ghibli. And the last one from Typical Bliss is probably my favorite so far, and you'll know why. It's because there's orange. And this is Baron and Louise, which is so pretty. So this one again is like a cream base with this light, like I would call it pretty much like a creamsicle orange, and then this really subtle blue. And then the mini skein is that creamsicle orange, but punched up by like 10, like much brighter creamsicle color. And these are beautiful. So my idea for these Typical Bliss yarns, because they're technically a sock set, but I'm thinking of not making socks. What I'm thinking of doing is striping them in a sweater or like a t-shirt, and then using the mini skeins as like the rings on the t-shirt edge, like a ringer tee, like striping on the neckline, striping on this, and striping on the hem, just like a little stripe detail. So that's a concept I have for these sock sets, or maybe I'll give up on that idea and just make some really fun, pretty socks. These are all on fingering weight wool, 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon. And some of these have different like labels, because this one says worsted, but it's not worsted. She's just using up her labels because she's wanting to upgrade to better quality labels, which go her. So that's exciting to see. And the next one I got probably in late June, early July, and I got it from a new local yarn dyer who recently, I believe, is a graduate of the New Brunswick College of Craft and Design, and that is Sophie Meade Textiles. And this is the yarn. Look at how scrumptious and yummy those colors are. I really appreciated the brightness of the colors that she chose and the way that they work together. I call this one delightfully bisexual. because this one doesn't actually have a name for the colorway on the little card. But it is a 70% superwash merino, 30% tencel, which is probably what gives it that sheen. That tencel is giving that shiny sheen. I'm thinking these will make a beautiful vanilla sock with all these fun colors striping together with like the purple and the blue and the pink. Love it. And I love supporting new local yarn dyers, so go follow Sophie Meade Textiles. We love it. Last but certainly not least, folks, is my finished objects. I'm now at like over 30 minutes. I'm definitely gonna have to do some editing. Ooh. But I'm going to talk about my finished objects in the order finished and talking about my own design last. So the first one was a test knit for Lydia Morrow of What Lydia Made, and that is the Jeepers jersey. So the Jeepers jersey is a cycling style jersey inspired by the vintage cycling jerseys of like the Tour de France. This one I did in the sleeveless option. You can also do like it, I believe it's like cap sleeves or like little short sleeves, but I did the sleeveless version. It's got optional hip shaping. I don't know if you can see right there. Yep, optional hip shaping. It's a folded hem that you start with. This was the most satisfying thing in the world. So it's bottom up, optional hem, optional bust shaping, which you can kind of see from here that it actually is some short rows right there to raise the bust and make it longer under the bust for me. And then this is actually not color work. This is duplicate stitch. And it says Jeeper, it's the creeper. The duplicate stitch is designed that you can literally design your own. She gives you a like chart to make your own. And because I was going with these kind of like Daphne of Scooby-Doo colors, I decided to go with Jeeper, it's the creeper. Yes, I know she says Jeepers, it's the creeper, but trust me, I tried designing it so many times where it said Jeepers and the S, no matter what I did, looked like it was living out on its own in no man's land. So I decided to go just with Jeeper, it's the creeper. It rhymes, it's fine. You sew in a zip, and I'll zip it up so you can see what it looks like zipped up. And it's got this beautiful high neck, doubled over with these beautiful sporty stripes. And I absolutely love this. I want to insert some pictures of what it looks like me wearing it, so I'll do that now. Isn't that so fun? I loved taking this to the botanical garden and taking pictures. I literally put my gorilla pod like on a tree. There was like an old man who was very confused about what I was doing, but I love this piece. This really gave me like my knitting and crochet mojo back. There's no crochet on this, but like knitting and crochet for me are like in the same zone. They're fiber arts with needles or hooks. Same vibe. This like gave me my mojo back. This like gave me life. Love it. Also, everything's on hangers just so I can show you better. I know I shouldn't be hanging my knits up, and I'm not. I keep them in a drawer in my closet, but I've just got them on hangers so I can show you the pieces a lot easier, okay? Before I get the lecture. Delete that comment. Don't do it. The next one is the Unpolished Skirt by Honse Design. This was also a test crochet. I made it in size 165 centimeter, the largest size, with hip shaping. So view B, I believe it was. So it's designed that the waistband actually does go in from the hip. This might be easier if I take it off the hanger for you to see, but I just hung it up so it was easier for me to grab and everything. So like that. There is a button right here so that it unbuttons the waistband, because the waistband's tighter than the hips, but not right under the waistband. So it's only that big of a gap, but it's just enough to get on. Then you pop this on. So this, I marled 2 colors together. The yarn was gifted to me by Honse for the, well, I'm gonna say Moa, because it's Moa Blomqvist of Honse Design. The yarn was gifted to me by Moa for the purpose of the test crochet, using some yarn support, because plus size stuff takes a lot of yarn. Let's just say it was a huge envelope. But this is mixing Hottest Socks Ever with Chaos Yarns. So it's a variegated marled with a black, like a plain black. And then I did the fake I-cord edging using the same green that I had left over from my Jeepers jersey. And it's got this really fun slit here. And it's designed to be completely seamless so that you can put the slit wherever you want. So it can be on the side, it can be on the back, it can be wherever. I'm going to insert a couple of photos here. I made a skirt, like what? And it's long, it's big, you guys, like it's long, like it's past my knees. Is a big boy. It was a lot of work. This was a lot of work, but I persevered and it was worth it in the end. And I absolutely am in love with it. It's beautiful. I'll protect it with my life. Next is another one from Honse Design. This one's actually not out yet, but if you've been following Honse on Instagram, you'll know it. Come on, it's the boxed-in vest. So the boxed-in vest is a really beautiful stitch pattern that you won't be able to tell very much here, but it is actually kind of a mesh texture, but with a knit look to it. This is a discontinued yarn that I got on super sale at 3 bags full in Moncton, New Brunswick. When I went to the zoo, I got some yarn at 3 bags full. And this is Cascade Luminosa in the color Sunstone. This vest is a side-tied vest with fake I-cord on all of the edges. This looks fantastic on this fluffy yarn. It is one of those tubular yarns where the fiber is blown into it, so it's super fluffy, has a beautiful halo, and it is so cozy, warm when I wear it, and it'll be a great layering piece in the fall and the winter. Great for work. I'm obsessed, okay. And my final finished object that is not my own design is the Holiday Slipover by Petite Knit. This is my first ever Petite Knit piece. Don't mind the fact that it's like collapsing on itself because it needs blocked really badly. Like it needs blocked on the sleeves especially, so because the sleeves keep like wanting to fold in on themselves, like the sleeve holes. But I'm actually kind of impressed with the way that this is designed, like just the piecing, like the way that you piece it, and it's always pick up and knit stuff. It's not like sewing together, but just the way that you do the back and the front and like all the piecing and how you work it together is very interesting, very cool. And I like it. I made it in size 4XL and it is definitely oversized, just as it was meant to be. Because this one's meant to be a couple, like I think 6 centimeters bigger than your body, which is like almost 3 inches bigger. And it definitely is, it definitely does that. And this is meant to be a drop so that it's much lower down here, and it is. The neckline is great. This is my first time doing the Italian bind off. I ended up loving the Italian bind off. I've heard a lot of people don't like the Italian bind off, but I think maybe it's just because they don't like sewn bind offs, but I just love it. The yarn I used is actually Loops and Threads Charisma from Michaels in the color Blackberry. which is why it's this variegated yarn with like these two separate colored shoulders, because you do the shoulders like separately, then join. But I really like how the striping came out. I actually really like it. I genuinely think that these two separate colored shoulders are kind of cool. And maybe I'll do some kind of like embroidery detail right here, or maybe some patches or something coming over these shoulders. I'm not 100% sure yet, but like everything's woven in. It just needs a quick block, a little steam, just to get these sleeves to sit a little nicer when worn. And we're good to go. I genuinely, I don't know if this is a common occurrence, but based on all the other plus size knitters I know, it's not a common occurrence. I actually really like the shaping and the sizing available. It goes up to 5XL, so I actually made the second biggest size, but because of the oversized nature, I think a variety of bodies could wear this design. I don't think that it's too oversized. My shoulders are quite wide, so well, they're not like that wide compared to my body, but like compared to like a standard human. So like the shoulders, the width grew with the sizing. Now, some plus size people might say, don't do that. Not all plus size people are really wide, but I am, so I appreciate it. I thought it fit me really well, and I think it's great. And that probably comes with a lot of experience. Petite Knit, as we know, is a prolific designer. She has so many designs, and I'm surprised that a straight-sized designer has been able to design something that fits so well for a plus-size person. Now, of course, it is designed to be oversized. It is a very basic shape. It doesn't have a lot of shaping in any of the sizes, so I can't speak to her designs that are more fitted. But in this, the holiday slipover specifically, I think it's great for plus sizes, and I think that anyone else should give it a try. I don't know. I just like it. I thought it was good. I don't know how it'll do with people with like much bigger chests though, because I have a 52-inch bust, and yeah, I don't know how it would work with people with much, like very, very large chests. I think there's definitely more room for chestiness in even the size I made. So I think it could go up to maybe even a 60-inch chest, maybe. I don't know about the size 5XL though. I don't know how it works. I don't know. Anyway, finally, any of you still around 40 minutes later, I'm going to talk about my Waffles on Sunday cowl. So this is my Waffles on Sunday cowl. It is a mix of broken rib and, well, it's a twisted rib edge and a broken rib, like overall texture. For the longest time, I did not know this was called the broken rib. I had frogged a sweater that was using some of this texture, and I loved it. It reminded me of waffles. So I was like, I decided to make a design, call it Waffles on Sunday, because that's a tradition in my home to have waffles on Sunday. Not every Sunday, but if we have waffles, it's on Sunday. So this is a beautiful stitch texture. I made the cowl to sit and fit how I like my cowls to fit. A little bit loose and not too tall and not too tight on my neck. And I'm a plus size person. I'm pretty big. But whereupon I had some pattern testers, turns out in my goal to be an inclusive designer, I left out straight size people and skinnier people or smaller necked people or smaller headed people. So reverse problems, but we introduced a size small. Ignore the fact that I have not woven in the ends. We're not going to talk about it. So this is the size small. So we now have a size large, adult large. So if you like a more loose fit, or if you don't like things too close to your neck, or if you are a bigger person like me, go for the size large. And if you would rather what I would call a neck warmer, or you want something a little more small. If you're a much smaller person, go for the size small, which as you can see, it's quite small on me, but much tighter up here, but I could put it up over my nose and mouth if I made it longer to be like a warmer, like if you're a cyclist, you could wear this cycling in the winter to keep yourself warm. But overall, that is the size small. So I'm waiting on a couple more testers to finish. I've got 4 testers. I've got 1 in person, 3 on Instagram. 1 on Instagram is finished and my in-person tester is finished. So I'm just waiting for my other 2 testers so that I can edit the pattern and get it ready to be released into the world. And speaking of one of my in-person testers, this is a shout out to Anne. So Anne was one of the ones who wanted a smaller size available. So we did that. She ended up knitting the size large first, and then she knit the size small. She's keeping the size small, and she made it a little shorter. Because at first I was making it that it had to be a certain height, but it was suggested that I make it adjustable to however high you want it. Like if you have a really long neck, you can knit more. If you have a really short neck, you can knit less. But she gave me her original size large to wear. This one's done with Cascade 220. So as you can see, it's much more floppy, a little more down like this, which I actually really like that. I think that's really fun and cool. Fun and funky and cool. But she gave me the size large to have because this was like stash yarn she had for forever and just needed to get rid of it. And it's nice to have another version of my piece so that you can see a different texture. So a similar color. So I guess it is the year of gold and mustard for me because I've got so much that I'm making with this color of Briggs Little, like the gold color. And just so you can see the difference between the sizing, it's actually not a crazy different, like when you lay it down like this, but when it's in the round, it actually is a big difference. It's like 18 stitches smaller, I think. Or is it 12? 12 stitches smaller. So it's actually quite a lot smaller. I'm really excited for that to come out. I have so many other designs in my mind, but I just can't allow myself to work on those until my first design is done as good as it's going to be before I release it. So that will be coming out in September. So keep an eye on Ravelry. I'm Ems' Fab over on Ravelry as well as Instagram. I don't use the Bird app anymore. Sorry, X. I don't use that. So I still have an account to like look at Sims updates, but we're not talking about it. So follow me on Instagram, hit subscribe here on YouTube, and pop on over to Ravelry and give me a follow so that when I release this pattern, you will know that it's available for your purchasing and knitting pleasure. And I hope you guys enjoyed me talking way too much about knitting, and I hope you have a good day. Love you, love you, love you lots. Bye, guys.